I was specified how to explain it.
I will. I will.
Yeah, that was confusing too. I wasn't exactly sure what that was.
Yeah, that's what that you increase based on what you see.
Okay, okay.
You're live on here.
Thank you.
Yeah, I kind of shy away from that. I don't know what that
Right.
is.
Yeah, we did it when I was on guard, and we have a rap system that we decided. So we're live on YouTube, right? Awesome. Well, greetings, my YouTube family, and all the in the conference room family that's with us YouTube. Thank you for joining us. We appreciate you watching. I believe we had got up to a total of 3,600 on last week, which was a grand total of 1,500 from the prior week. So God is definitely in the blessing business with spreading this word. It's spreading like wildfire. We can only imagine who else is going to reach. I don't know what all continents it's hitting on. I haven't looked that far into it, but we thank each and every one of you all for joining us, and we pray that all is well in your homes and in your lives. Tonight we're here with a very special guest, with the Chief of Police of Texarkana, and along with my colleagues around the table, and we'll go around the room and share who they are, where they're from, and all that kind of good stuff. And today I'm gonna switch it up. I'm gonna go on my right hand side. On my right hand side.
Not yet. Are we good? We're good.
Oh, okay, good. All right.
Was I on that video?
Nah, that was on YouTube. I'm over All right. So as you know, man, we're just a group of guys, man, just unconventional, doing what God says do. We're not scripted. We're just having fun. And this is like our big man cave where we just talk things out and let things just flow how they may. Amen. But with that being said, to my Facebook family, thank you for coming on, and we pray that God does something for you, for your ear gate on today, and also for your eyes, that you can see that we do have a very special guy here with us today in Texarkana Department Chief. Say that again.
Kevin Shooty.
Kevin Shooty, amen, amen. I did not want to chop up your name or mess it up. Yes, sir. I just want to make sure that you feel comfortable with us, and we're going to answer and clear up some things that we all have probably questions about in the text and surrounding cities of Texarkana. So we'll be hearing from Chief Shooty a little later on, but as of right now, let's get a roundtable of who you are and what you do and all that kind of good stuff. I'm going to start on my right-hand side this time. Mr. Tracy, let them know who you are.
I'm Tracy Jones. I'm with I'm Tracy Jones. I'm with Know Your Work Ministries, Texarkana United, and just glad to be a part of this council.
Good evening to everyone. I'm Brian Matthews. I'm an associate professor of management at Texas A&M University in Texarkana. I'm also an associate minister at Greater St. John Missionary Baptist Church in Hooks, Texas. Again, welcome to everyone tonight.
I'm Landon Hunnid. I'm the campus lead pastor at Future Life Church here in Texarkana.
Stephen Holbush. I'm Ward 3 Board Director on the Arkansas side.
I am Kevin Shooty, the police chief in Texarkana, Texas. I've been serving the Texarkana community for over 35 years. I'm very thankful to be here today. You guys for having me, and I look forward to the conversations we'll have this evening.
Well, that's awesome. Of course, I'm Howard Thomas of Faith Beyond Four Walls Worship Church, located off of Walnut Street. I'm glad to be here amongst these distinguished gentlemen and men of valor. And I'm just so excited about tonight because we actually have someone that's in the field that can answer some questions that everybody is speculating on and just random thoughts out there that a guy that has been on the force for how many years? 35 years, almost. I am old, but anyway, we understand. But we understand he has great experience, and so we feel very comfortable in his professionalism and what he can bring to the table and what he can share with us and to our viewers that's watching and also viewing us at this time, and also that's going to be viewing us later. So without further ado, we're going to jump in with question number one, which will be brought to you by Steve.
All right, I want to give you a little background before I ask this question. Like I made aware, I'm from Georgia, and so I kind of keep up with what's going on in Georgia and Atlanta. Now, there was an incident where some police officers had used a taser on a couple and dragged them out of the car, and so they were rightfully fired for that situation. Just over this weekend, there was an incident at a Wendy's where a black gentleman was pulled over by a white cop, and he actually was wrestling with the officers, took the taser, and fired at the officers. The officers returned fire and killed the gentleman. Before any investigation or anything, they fired the officer that was involved. So my question is, has TTPD considered, revising some of the strategies that you use with dealing with stuff like this?
My short answer to that is no, we have not. And the reason I say that is because we've been doing it the right way already. And, we have procedures in place. We are what is known as a recognized agency, which means we have an accreditation group that has 164 best policies, best practices that we have shown an adherence to, that we have demonstrated and have to demonstrate through annual audits and then an overall recognition, re-recognition program every 3.5 years to show that we are going by those policies and procedures. It is something that we chose to do. When this program started in the state of Texas, we were one of the first 5 in the entire state to be recognized in this program. It was a 1.5 year long process to be able to establish all the policies and best practices and show proof that we have demonstrated that we are going by each and every one of those. It covers everything from the way we collect and gather evidence to the way we deal with drug cases, use of force instances, how do we investigate complaints from citizens. Everything is in there. And so what I will tell you is that absolutely we see what's going on, and we use an abundance of caution to make absolutely sure that what we continue to do each and every day is right, doing the right things for the right reasons. And as the administrator of the department and one who watches the use of force videos, and I randomly watch videos every week, and it's not trying to catch my officers doing something, it's so I can continue to have pride in the way that we do the things that we do. Just because you see something on television and things are happening in other places uh, does not mean that those same things are occurring here. The state of Texas has taken great strides in professionalizing the law enforcement field and profession in the state of Texas, and a lot of things that they're demanding that the officers have to do in the other states, we've been doing for decades. And so I'm proud of that. I'm proud of our organization. Like I told you all earlier, I've been a member of the Texarkana, Texas Police Department since 1985. I started in the jail because I was too young to be a police officer. As a senior in high school, I would get out of school and go to work in the jail from the 4 to midnight shift when I got out of class in high school. And so I've been there ever since. So I've seen Texarkana grow, I've seen our organization grow, and I've seen both grow in positive ways. The way things are done, the way business is conducted within our organization today is very different than it was 35 years ago, and it's all for the good. Um, I feel like every officer that wears our badge not only is, but sincerely considers themselves ambassadors of good. That which would stand between what would harm and create disharmony throughout our community. And they do that with compassion, they do that with restraint, and they do it so that they can make a difference in the community that they serve. And I truly believe that, or I would not want to lead an organization that was any other way.
That's great to hear. That sounds like we're leading the way as far as what should be done.
Yes,
Because
sir.
I know in talking with Chief Harrison on the Arkansas side, they're also accredited.
Right.
And so it's great to hear that we've got 2 great police forces that are, operating above the standard.
And can I say that is a painstaking task to be accredited both for the Texas side and the Arkansas side. It also costs money that we don't really have the budget, but the reason we did that is to ensure not only that we have confidence in our abilities and our competencies as law enforcement officers, but it's also to demonstrate to our community that we want to do it right, that we are committed to doing it right, and that we want to be the example to the rest of the area, not only in this region, but in the country. That here in Texarkana, we have a unique situation. We're a city that is called twice as nice, and that we want to interact with our community in a positive way, but we are tasked with enforcing the laws and doing the things that help to keep us where we can live in safety and in harmony and enjoy life without having to be prisoners in our own homes or afraid to raise our families in the community with freedom and the ability to feel confident that we are safe. Who's that? Who has number two?
Thank you so much for answering so sincerely question number one. And so I will segue into question number two with this preference. I know there are, especially at this modern day and time, where individuals have the luxury and the accessibility of recording incidences on their cell phones. But we have just seen it more recognizably with Mr. Floyd in Minnesota, where snippets of that video was released, to the public. Some in brevity and then other renditions of it in its totality. So given, this modern age we live in, the second question is it required for TTPD, where it is a rule for a police officer to have their body cameras along with their desk camera at all times?
Oh, absolutely. In Texarkana, Texas, we've been fortunate to purchase the Axon body camera system. And if you see any body cam video you see on television now, whether it be Los Angeles Police Department, New York Police Department, Austin, San Antonio, the big police departments, you'll see up in the corner the Axon logo or emblem. That is the best of the best as far as we're concerned of the equipment. So we didn't just go to satisfy the requirements. We selected that which would be superior equipment so that it would be reliable, so that we know when we activate it, for the most part, without some exceptions, sometimes batteries go dead and we have no control over that, but usually that doesn't happen. We invested in the best equipment that we could have. Number one, because we wanted that clarity. Number two, we wanted it to be, reliable. And so to answer your question, we have a policy at the Texarkana, Texas Police Department that from the time you are dispatched on the call, immediately when you get dispatched, you activate your camera system. So your response in the patrol vehicle is recorded, your body is recorded, any radio traffic, any talking that you have is recorded before you ever get to the scene. The reason is sometimes things can unfold so rapidly when you get there that you can just immediately go to take action or to help someone and forget to activate your system. And so there's lots of things that happen. Sometimes officers get criticized or we get complaints because an officer may have been driving too fast or things like that. So that eliminates all of that. Whenever an officer gets a call, he is immediately required to activate that camera system, and that camera system stays on until that call is completely finished. If they transport someone to the detention center, that camera stays on throughout its entirety until they get on the elevator, which generally we don't have good coverage in the elevator, but then it's picked up on the jail cameras, and the elevator is also equipped with a camera. So from the time an officer gets a call until the call is completely finished, everything should be recorded on video. And I will tell you that those videos have been amazing at us being able to demonstrate our competencies, our ability to show great restraint regardless of the abuse, verbal or otherwise, that the officers may be taking. You guys, being pastors, will understand this. We have a chaplaincy corps on our police department. We actually have pastors that are part of our organization that the officers, they do things like that. And I've had them come to my office on many occasions, all four of them without fail, and say, I'm a pastor, I am a man of God, and I don't know how your officers take the verbal abuse that they take every day with the professionalism and the restraint that they show. Because they say, I'm a pastor, I'm going to climb out of that car. uh, it's all about our core values and what we preach and we teach in our organization, not to things to become personal. It's not personal. people are angry at what we represent, which is that which has to enforce laws and rules of society and things like that. Oh, they'll look at your name tag and they'll say, Officer Harris, but they don't know why. They're just trying to make it personal so that they can push that personal button. And I tell the officers, the men and women of the Texas County Police Department, there's nothing more powerful. If a citizen complains, they come up and say, I was stopped by this officer, he was rude to me, he talked this and that. I say, come on back and let's watch and we'll discuss this. But they forget that they're wrong. And a lot of times those things have been exaggerated when they say, I've got to go to a meeting, if you just tell him, treat me like that anymore. And I can say that each time, gentlemen, with confidence, because I know how men and women are doing their job every day. They're doing it with dignity and respect for everyone, regardless of where they find them and how they find them. And so I tell my commanders all the time, I should be able to show any incident video at the city council meeting and not be embarrassed, ashamed, or afraid to confidently say, let's watch the video. Now, on cases that are active and being investigated, obviously you can't do that. People are always demanding, release the video, release the video. We can't do that on things that are inactive or actively being investigated. But just know and know my heart and know that we're doing it right and that I'm ensuring that we do it right. Is there an opportunity that we may have a mistake or something happen? Yes, but I promise you I deal with it immediately and I deal with it harshly. And so the men and women of our departments, by and large, and I can't speak for Texas County, Arkansas, but they are too a professional organization, so I don't think that it would be any different over there. But we're just men and women working together with the community that we are a part of. People forget that. We live here, we work here, trying to make a difference, a positive difference in all that we do.
And I will say, just to augment your comment, as a former member of the Michigan Texas City Council, and I would imagine that, the current public officials for Michigan Texas that these conversations related to body cameras was prevalent dialogue, during my tenure on the council. There was always adequate relative to, the activation and usage of body cameras. During the time that I was on the city council, there were never any complaints from any of the citizens that expressed that there was an absence of a body camera that was used. Now I didn't ever have any issue come before the city council that there was any consternation to this issue. So I can personally attest, that the senators from Kevin Shirley are diametrically active. And given the fact that, this confidence that Texas Police Department as well as Texas Arkansas, and what's going on in other cities, we can be confident in knowing that those things are not going on either.
Awesome. That's good to hear. Very well put. Thank you so much for answering that very strategically. I would like to piggyback just a little bit on that question. In the event that officer had his body camera on and the dash cam, but something should go, battery goes dead, wire's not plugged up, what is their responsibility for that incident or putting that their equipment properly operating?
Okay, so whenever there's an incident that occurs, it's always reviewed by the shift commander, which is usually a lieutenant. We've got two sergeants. Anytime there's been an incident on the shift, they review that body camera footage. Now, if for some reason that body camera was not on or it wasn't activated, but that officer's disciplined. He's disciplined immediately. But I will say this, in the event that a battery goes dead or there's some kind of equipment malfunction, sometimes it's the switch didn't work in the car, which is supposed to activate the body camera and the car camera. Now they can activate the body camera separate if they see that it's not on. But in Texarkana, we've got procedures in place to where if we have an in-progress call, something that is more than a burglary that was discovered that has long since been over, we have more than one officer going. We have two officers dispatched to that, plus a supervisor So if one officer's camera becomes inactive, we've got two other views of it. And so we are covered with redundancy in that body camera video.
Awesome. All right, we'll move right on to question number three. That would be, Chief, first of all, thank you for being here. Thank you for, as Paul wrote to the Romans, being a minister of justice to our city that upholds justice, that upholds law and order so we can live free, so we can not be afraid to leave our homes. As such, even as ministers, we're called to be above reproach. And I think part of that you've already described, the training procedures, the accreditation that the police department has, is I know as a minister, it's very important that I respond to issues, I don't react.
Absolutely.
And part of your training is it's so that you can almost just go on autopilot and respond to whatever the issue is at hand. Um, so I appreciate how you describe that. One of the things that I think people don't understand is the use of force continuum. We watch TV and we watch these shows that it is theatrics and it's not how most police officers are trained. Um, and we know, we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, that that our police department here in town, we're not these other places. We went around and we talked about how grateful we all have been for the police here in our city. Um, and but we would love for people to be informed on what is y'all's training, what is because these officers want to go home to their family tonight. And they don't, they're dealing with unknown uh, suspects and things that are going on at the time. So what is part of your training as far as the use of force continuum? And for people that may not know, what is a use of force continuum?
Okay, so thank you for your question, and I don't mean to bring up you unexpectedly, Dr. Matthews, but just to explain a little bit about what happens is that there is no use of force that is used, whether the smallest that we use or the greatest that looks well on video. It just doesn't. There's no way. We had an incident a little over a year ago at one of our local apartment complexes that was videoed by a citizen from an angle to the side. There was lots of misrepresentations, lots of narrative that was totally accusatory, that was false, things about racial slurs that my officers were supposed to be making while this was going on that was totally false. I mean, there was none of that was occurring. And I received a phone call from Dr. Matthews because he had seen this edited citizens video from the angle it was from, and all the comments that were running like wildfire. And I think he will tell you that I invited him to listen and for us to discuss exactly what happened and what was viewed on the video. One of the things that was said was I saw a man on the ground that had 4 police officers ganged up on him. He was lifeless, he was this, he was that. And that was totally inaccurate. The man was not lifeless. He had his hands in his waistband. The call was that he was out in the complex with a weapon. We couldn't get his arms out from under him. And so there was 3 officers that were actually with this guy. One on each shoulder from the side while he's laying on his stomach with his hands in his waistband, and one sitting on his buttocks holding his shoulders down so that he couldn't move. And it looked like everybody says, why'd you have to have 3 officers on there? Why are you ganging up on this guy? A lot of things that we do is we have been trained so that we can utilize the people that are necessary so that we do not inflict harm. And it doesn't look good, but what it is as long as we can control his movements and we don't have one police officer toe to toe with people, that's just going to get both people hurt. And so we know how to utilize our other officers that are there for assistance to be able to restrain people in a fashion that keeps them from hurting themselves or hurting us. But if you look at it on video, a lot of times it does not look that way. What had happened on this particular case was they were saying that the police officer was pounding him in the head while they used, and every time they pounded him, they used the N-word. They used the N-word. So I had no problem using the officer's video camera that was actually the one that was sitting on his buttocks, not on his lungs, not on his back, but restraining his back of his thighs so he couldn't raise his legs up and kick. while at the same time using his hands to try to control his shoulders. Uh, when we're afraid that they have a weapon there are things that we are trained to do that are called pressure points and certain strikes that we do in order to eliminate that situation. In this particular case, it's a forearm strike between the shoulder blades to get them to do what I kind of hate to use this word because it sounds so immature, but it's called to get them to do the chicken, where they pull their wings back. If you do that when they pull their wings back, you just relieve them of having their hands wherever a weapon may be, so that you can take custody of them and restrain them. And so that's exactly what was happening. I was also able to show that there was no racial slurs being said. And that's what we fight, guys. We fight people that will exaggerate and create things that don't exist to fit their agenda, their personal agendas, their personal, I hate to say the word, but biases against law enforcement that are absolutely not there. And we can't, a lot of times, because of the rights of the individual that we're arresting to have his privacy kept, regardless of what we're doing, we cannot refute the things that are said about us. We just have to take it. And you know what? That happens more than you would even imagine. Our officers every day, I wish I could show, I know we would have 4 to 5 videos daily that I could show you where our officers are verbally abused immediately when they make contact with someone or something like that. And I always tell people, and I mean this from my core, I know people, they project. This is a psychological term that we learn whenever we're learning de-escalation techniques and not to take things personal. They're mad at themselves. Number one, maybe they didn't pay for 6 tickets, and they've known they've had them. They've been trying to avoid the police, and now they're there, and they're mad at themselves, but they project that on the officer. They project that out. And our officers understand how that goes. But do you know what the miracle is, guys? Really and truly. The miracle is that same officer who's done that for 4 days this week, he'll get up tomorrow and put that uniform on again. And he'll shine that badge up, and he'll go right back out there. Because he knows, or she knows, that they are the only thing that stands between that which will harm us and that which allows us to live in safety and security. The use of force continuum is this. It starts off with a command presence. That just means your mere presence of being there. In uniform, representing authority. Then it goes to verbal commands. After verbal commands are ineffective, then we go to strong hand tactics. That means that you have the ability to grab someone and try to restrain them. Then we go to kinetic impact devices, whether it be a nightstick, whether it be less lethal weapons such as beanbag rounds, things like that, and chemical munitions. That's your OC sprays and things like that. There are so many things that we have ensured that our officers have as tools in their tool belt, other than just going to deadly force. Now, an officer has the right to go straight from 0 to deadly force, depending on what he has. I don't know if it was with the meeting with you, Dr. Matthews, or it may have been with the other pastors that I met with. I told them this, and I mean it with all sincerity. What keeps me awake at night is not laying at home worrying that my officers are going to hurt someone. What keeps me awake at night, guys, is worrying that they will not. Because we have preached restraint. We have talked to them over and over about treating people with dignity and respect and using that restraint. Don't take things personal. Don't let your emotions get involved in what you're doing. And my fear is that they're going to be so careful that they're going to have something happen, and in that split second that they're like, oh, I don't want to get in trouble. I don't want to be on the national news tonight. I don't this, and it's going to cause them to lose their life or to get hurt seriously bad. So far, my officers have been professional. When it's time to go, it's time to go, and they know, and they do it right. It is my prayer, and we pray for our guys, that they will always have that confidence that God will guide them to know when it's time to do what, and that they will not hesitate, but they will stand and they will take the action that needs to be taken appropriately, and that the community and everyone else will see that it was something that was necessary and it wasn't in a malicious fashion. And if it is, if there happens to be a case like that, rest assured I'll take care of it, and I'll take care of it swiftly. Thank you so much for your answer.
Awesome. That's some good stuff right there. Good tactics training of that battle system. Me knowing it very well, being a security officer for 4.5 years. The police officer or not, they just see man with a badge and a gun.
So you know.
And they really, they really allowed me to choose a different field because I was a pastor and I myself on a character. I worked at Waffle House. I was the sergeant there. I was over Waffle House, IHOP, and Whataburger. Uh, so
Those are good ones on the weekend.
so I can tell you that if they treated me and being a man of color and just trying to get them to do the right thing, some I went to school with, and one of our biggest issues was coming into a family restaurant with their pants hanging down. And I would tell them, please pull your britches up. And then I would get called an MF and you uncle this and uncle that, and you just this, you just that. And at one moment I had enough. And I almost roughed them up too much. And I knew then that I needed to change my profession because I didn't want to jeopardize my Christianity more than I want to jeopardize my morals in what I believe in.
Was your camera on?
My camera was on. My camera was on. That's why I had to go ahead and say this gonna go YouTube. I'm going viral yeah, I'm gonna go viral that night, man. I tell you, he wasn't gonna eat no cheeseburger that night. He was gonna eat something else, another sandwich. No, I'm kidding. Oh man, but it's good to hear, and it's also great to laugh, man, because the trials and errors, and I mentioned this last week, just rules of authority that people in this generation just do not want to adhere to. I don't care if you're a school teacher, a bus driver, a security officer, police officer. It just doesn't matter. But I believe it's all in how you, the upbringing, the training, and also the generational baggage that comes along with this generation that's coming ahead of us. And so, with that being said, let's move on to our next question, which is number 4. And I don't know who chose that.
Yeah, I'll give that one a spin.
You'll give that one a try.
Chief, I want to thank you again for being here with us tonight. We did talk a couple of weeks ago about how proud we were of the city and proud of the force that keeps us safe. And we feel like we live in the best city ever. And we believe that you guys go over the top to make sure that we're safe and that we have a great place to live and to grow a family and to worship God in. I really want to thank you for that. And thank you for taking the time to come here tonight and visit with us. We know that the officers go through a tremendous strain. The Bible says that we don't wrestle against flesh and blood, but the spiritual principalities and powers of the air. And so I'm just curious, is there a requirement, and if so, how often does TTPD offer spiritual guidance or direction on any of the following? Mental health, anxiety, stress test, depression, or any of those things? Are there programs in place for the officers for those things?
Absolutely. And you know, I told you earlier that we have a chaplaincy program in our police department. And that chaplaincy program is for the officers. We use the chaplains from time to time to deliver death messages if we worked a car accident or there's been a shooting or something like that. But by and large, they're there to be a spiritual presence within our ranks. They get in police cars. We randomly select officers for these chaplains to ride with. And the chaplains readily come to me. They won't tell me the conversations that they're having, but they will say, Chief, your department opens up to us more than you would ever know. And, you know, they tell me different things, you know, they encourage me by saying, you know, that they value a godly leadership in the police department. They value the core, that the way they conduct themselves eliminates a lot of issues. In regard to what you say, something that people don't realize, you know, I'm standing here today. I am a pastor, I'm a minister, but I've been a police officer for over 3 decades. And what's in here, the things that these eyes have seen, the horror, the, the mayhem, the just awful way that humanity treats one another, the accident scenes, the needless loss of life, whether it be that child that was unrestrained in a car accident or one man taking another man's life, a domestic violence incident where a child has been abused, whether it be physical or sexual, we see the worst of the worst. And we carry that with us. There is no delete button or archive button in our minds. It's like a computer, but you can't trash. You can't send things to the trash bin. It's always there. And just like you guys know, from the time the doctor places us on the table when we're born until now, we are a culmination of everything that we've seen and experienced up to this point. Our prejudices, our belief system, our value system, everything is related to what we have been exposed to. And so we realize that in law enforcement and first responders and things like that. So that's why we provide those chaplains to be a force that is there to be able to answer questions and do things. Um, Many of the officers that work at our department, they know me and they know who I am to the core and what I do. And I've had opportunities to pray with many of my men and women, either ones that are going through divorces maybe or are going through a tough time. Maybe they've lost a loved one or whatever. I've had them bring people from the bi-state that work in other areas and just bring them in my office and say, man, will you pray with this guy or this gal? And I always say, yes, absolutely. Because, you know, I serve one master, and it permeates through everything that I do. I don't categorize my life. Uh, I, he's either Lord of all or he's not Lord at all. And so everything that I do, now I make missteps. I have feet of clay. I'm a man of flesh. We all make mistakes, but I promise you that I serve him before I serve the city. And every day I seek his guidance and I make sure that I keep that connection. You know, he lets me know in some way or another every day that he's there. And so when you ask those questions, our city has a program called EAP, which is an employee assistance program. It's completely confidential, but it's available, and we refer people to that all the time. Counseling is available, whether it be marriage counseling, whether it be anger management, whether it be any kind of thing you can imagine. Uh, they can go and seek that. It's free. The city offers it. And you would think, well, it's a free service. What kind of quality can it be? Every one of the men and women that I've had use that come back and say it was amazing. It was very beneficial. So we try to create balance. And talking with you earlier, one of the things that we do is we encourage our officers to have activities outside of the police department that don't involve other police officers. Have friends at the church. Be involved in youth sports in your community. Many of our men and women coach their kids' softball teams, their baseball teams, soccer teams. They have friends outside of the police experience so that they're not constantly talking shop. It's good to get away from that to create that balance. And so we do those things to care for their spiritual well-being.
One of the you guys weren't here, but I heard the chief praying on Wednesday. We had a prayer rally at the post office, and there's many things there that touched me that night. But when I heard him pray in the middle of his prayer, he said, as for me and my city, we will serve the Lord. And I was really blessed by that. And I want to thank you for that prayer and for your heart for the Lord.
Well, thank you. You know, the national media and everyone in general is just trying so hard to get us to choose sides. Yeah. You know, what side are you on? What do you believe? And a lot of these conversations that I'm having, I think are unifying conversations because people see, first of all, I hope they see my heart, and I hope they see the heart of the men and women that serve the city of Texarkana, Texas, and I believe on both sides of the state line. But, you know, when I hear that, choose a side. I think in Joshua chapter 24, it says, choose you this day who you will serve. And after attending that meeting the other night and hearing our community sing how great is our God, a cappella, and it bounced off of the Episcopal Church, the courthouse, Joe's Restaurant, all them things downtown, it touched my soul. And I said after that, and hearing the prayers of all those pastors there, I can say with confidence, as for me and my city, we're going to serve the Lord. So if we choose God, and we don't choose this side or that side, God wins. So I believe that.
Awesome. You can't go wrong with choosing God. I tell you, you're right, Chief. The world, not so much this city, but I can say in other cities, they're really trying to put this picture or this framework of like division in every aspect, from police against the citizens, and the government against the Congress. I mean, they're just trying to create division in every aspect of this world. And I feel that, like you said earlier, if we choose, but it's a choice that we have to make. Absolutely. If we choose our Lord Jesus Christ, for Him to guide us and lead us in the direction that we need to go, I believe the world will be a better place. But we're choosing man, or we're choosing ourselves, because we got to be honest, we got selfish people out there that want selfish things, and so money is one of the things that they want to gain. But how many you know you can't go to your grave with a U-Haul in the back of it? So you can't take the stuff with you. So my thing is, what kind of imprint are we making to the next generation? And I have a young man that's here, and I'm asking him a question. I'll bring him up a little later on. But I want to get his perspective from a younger standpoint, a younger generation. And but we'll deal with that later on. We'll move on to question number five. You had that? I'll ask you. No problem. Number five says, how do TTPD measure an officer level of patience and temperament?
Okay, so we talked about a lot of that already. We monitor everything that they do. There are certain things that we watch, and because we do monitor each officer, our supervisors on the shifts are required to watch 2 videos from every officer every week on their shift, so that they can monitor and see what's going on. And there have been times when we watch these things and we'll say to ourselves, that's out of character. He didn't abuse anybody there, but he's usually a little more happy-go-lucky than that, or she's usually a little more lighthearted than that. What's the deal? And so we'll actually call them in and have a conversation and say, look, is there something you're going through? Is there anything we can help you with? Because we try to keep it to where we don't get to the point to where someone uses has issues on something else and it spills over into the job. So we monitor those things that way. Once again, our chaplains are great helps in that. Our supervisors are more than supervision. One of the things that immediately upon my appointment that I started was I didn't want to be institutional. I wanted to be relational, not only with us in the community, but with the officers that work inside the department. And so I randomly view videos throughout the week. Just nobody tells me, hey, watch this one or watch that one. I just go to an officer and I have the ability to select any call. And if I see one that lasted a while, I know that was a real call and it wasn't just some traffic stop or some sense about that, although I watch those as well. And when I see an officer that is facing that verbal abuse like we talked about earlier, or it's just a tough situation they were in and people were angry and that officer walked that walk that was true of his calling and he really demonstrated what it means to use restraint and dignity and respect to be that professional, then I send them a message privately. I don't do it so that everybody knows that the chief's doing this or that, but I'll send that officer a message privately. And all I say is, I see you, and I appreciate the way that you're carrying yourself, the way you're representing this organization, the way you're representing yourself, and the way that you are modeling the way that we should be doing things. And so, with that positive reinforcement, I think has the officers to continue to say, you know what, this creates so much more, uh, less pressure, makes my day less tense if I'm in control of myself. And so we go through great things to try to make sure that our officers know that we appreciate them every day, that we do see what they're doing, and that it doesn't go unnoticed, and that they have value, and that they are very much so creating a relationship between us and the community just in the way that they carry themselves.
Just kind of piggyback on that question. How do you select an officer during the hiring process? Uh, what are you looking for in character and gentleman and presence when you hire someone?
I'm glad you asked that question. And one of the things that I told another group that I was meeting with that they didn't know is that we actually have African American community members that are on our selection board. They have an equal vote with the police officers that sit on the board, and they get to look at everything that we look at. So here's the thing: They are in the very gate to our organization. They stand in the gateway to those who would be a part of the police department and those who are not selected. And so how else more can we be inclusive and responsible to the community, especially different factions of the community, than to allow them to be at the gate with us. They see the personal history statements that these officer applicants fill out. They see the polygraph test results. They take a polygraph. They see the psychological test results, and those things are comprehensive. It says they have minimal to no propensity for violence. They don't exhibit any anger issues, and all those things are looked at and managed before we ever allow them even to apply to go to the police academy. So we are taking steps on the front end now. Can a fox get in the vineyard? I mean, we know you're familiar with the scriptures. The little foxes in the vineyard. It can happen, but it's not because we haven't screamed and tried. And one of the things that I always say, and I learned this from my predecessor, Chief Senator. Excuse me, but this statement is true. Enough than a bad eye. We never get to the point to where we need somebody so bad that we'll just take whatever. I would rather work shorthanded and have people having to come in and work their days off or whatever we have to do until we can select and find that person. Because once you have an individual in the department that is exhibiting things that are outside your core values, it's much more difficult to weed them out than it is to never let them in the first place. Does that answer?
Yes, I agree. All right, for our viewers, if you're listening, I'm gonna give you this call-in number if you have a question for the chief. That number is 717-275-8940. Access code 347-5400. Again, that number is 717-275-8940. All access code 347-5400. Or you can inbox Dot on the go with that question as well. All right, we're moving right along. We're moving pretty good here. The next question up is what number we on, fellas?
Six.
Number 6. All right, who had that one?
I can roll that.
Roll on, Trace.
Um, this question's basically asking Ttpd in the field or office, are there any recorded or reported incidents that could have been considered as racial profiling? And if so, what was it and how was it resolved as a department?
We generally don't have complaints of that nature, but one of the things that I will say is the Texarkana, Texas Police Department, we make between 350 and 450 arrests per month. We arrest, in average, close to 4,000 individuals per year. In 2019, we had 3 complaints. One of those was that the person didn't do what they had been accused of doing. The other was the incident that I talked about with you, and the other had to do with rudeness on a traffic stop. So when we deal with the public that many times and we have that many interactions with the public, I think it's very telling that we don't have that many complaints. As far as racial profiling goes, we have a monthly report every month that I require that it be on my desk by the 10th of every month. So the 10th of June, which I've already received in May, monthly report, I'm able to see how many calls we answered, where were those calls. We have a top 10 call location. We have where were the accidents happening. But one of the things that's very telling is that we have an arrest data report, and it says how many people we arrested in the month of May. And it could be, I'll just give an example, maybe 325. I think it's actually in the 200s because of COVID. A lot of people aren't out and we're, it's dialed back a little bit. But under that number is, out of that number, how many were men and how many were women? And out of all that number, how many have we handled before? How many people are on probation? And always, almost always, it's almost 60% of the people that we arrest every month are on probation for a crime that they've already committed. Of that, a lot of times there's an additional 40 to 50 that are out on bond for crimes that they have committed. And so what we look at is the recidivism rate. And you say, well, what does that mean? And what do you get by that? By that, I get a report card on our community. I can tell you with pretty much utmost confidence that 90% of the crime in Texas County is being committed by 10% of the population. And so that means 90% of our population are decent, great, law-abiding citizens who want to live in a community where they can have harmony and feel safe and all of those things. So that's encouraging to me. When you look at the arrests that we make and the things that we're doing, and you see those type of numbers, then you know that it's people that are preying on the number. Now, you talk about racial profiling. Let me touch on that in just a minute. And this is I'm not going to say it's an uncomfortable conversation, but I want to have it. Our top 10 call locations every month, without fail, or our apartment complexes. A lot of times it's our assisted living, government assisted living complexes, things like that. So what does that mean? Well, while I know that there are many different races and demographics that comprise of those areas, those are the people that are calling us for help 100% of the time. Our top 10 call locations are those locations. So that's where we're going to assist citizens of Texas County. We have 36,000 people in Texas County, Texas, but our top 10 call locations are those areas of the city. And it's not that we're in there trying to see what we can do. We are called there to assist those citizens. And so when we go there, obviously, if it's, I'll give you an example of a typical call. Two men in the apartment complex. We believe they're armed. We think they're doing some type of drug dealing. Will y'all investigate? So we go over there, and one of the things the officer says is, do I have a 1019, or do I have a complainant? Is there somebody that wants to talk to me? No, they wanted to remain anonymous because they don't want to be seen as the person they called in. I understand that. But at the same time, they call us there, they give us a description. That car leaves as we're pulling in. Obviously, if they're still sitting there, they're going to go different directions. It's our responsibility to investigate the call that we just had, although it's anonymous. And then we stop that person when they're leaving, and then we start getting criticized for stopping, and they, yeah, racial profiling, or why are you doing this, why are you doing that? And so it's a very sensitive thing when you talk about that. I can say that, if we have issues, and I don't want to go on and on because I know we're on time here. In the month of March in Texas County, we had 185 calls for shots fired in Texas. Wow. 185. If you remember, over around the college, over off of Belt Road, Oak Hill Street, we had innocent neighbors' houses being shot up because we had these two factions who think it's cool to go hard, and they want to do, and they're shooting. And our officers, our special investigative units, our patrol officers, everyone recognized that what that is doing is creating issues in those neighborhoods where the people that live there can't even go out in their yards and enjoy visiting with neighbor to neighbor or anything like that. They are prisoners in their own home. And it is our responsibility as a community, but more importantly as the police department, to protect our communities from that which causes those issues. And so we began identifying through Facebook posts and other things, these people that were involved in that. And so at the time, we had there was a curfew that had already been enacted, not because of this, but because of COVID-19. And so we began going in those neighborhoods and we began investigating. The way we do that is we use statutory laws, traffic statutes, and things like that in order to gain probable cause to investigate further. If a car pulls up to a stop sign and either doesn't stop, or he doesn't signal intent for a left turn, is that a major thing? No, but it is now because it's in one of those neighborhoods where we have people that don't feel safe. And so we will make that traffic stop just so that we can see and understand who is this person, what are they doing. And I want you to know we made 23 arrests and took 13 guns off the street. And the next month we had 20 calls and shots fired. There was nobody that was injured or abused, either police officers or suspects. So we did it right. With armed encounters, armed people, we showed great restraint, but we have the authority and the responsibility to take care of those issues when they happen. So you can live in your home in this community without fear of a stray bullet going off or something like that. So when you say racial profiling and things like that, we profile crime, not individuals, and we take it very serious that we address these things and address it quickly. That was March, fellas, and when summer gets here, it's always twice as bad. So somebody asked me about the curfew, and I just want to share this because I thought it was pretty neat. They said, "Well, why did y'all do the curfew? The curfew was not about COVID-19. It was just about the police department. It was just so they could control people, they could this, they could that." And I told him, I said, "Well, the curfew was already enacted before we started having any of our problems, albeit when the schools shut down." Are you hearing what I'm saying? When the schools shut down and kids are at home without supervision and things like that, that's when these things start to occur. But I said, let me explain what the curfew did for us, even though it was for the COVID-19 and not the crime. Do you remember when you were little and your mother would go buy pinto beans or dry beans, and she would put them out on the counter, and she'd spread them out flat, and she would pick out the rocks? If there's not as many beans, it's easier to find the rocks. And so that's exactly how that benefited us during that time. So while it was not part of that, it was very beneficial for us to be able to do that. So in regard to racial profiling, there are several laws that have been enacted in Texas. I don't know, many of you may be aware of Senator Royce West in the Dallas area. He has put forth so much legislation in Texas for law enforcement reform and statutory requirements and things that we must do and how we should report it. We have to do a data information card on anybody that we stop, whether they're walking, whether they're in a deal, and it's all about racial profiling. The police department submits a racial profiling report through Dr. Eric Fritch, who is the criminal justice professor at the North Texas University in Denton. We submit all of our data to him. He creates a racial profiling report that we must send to the state. We give a copy of it to the city council, and we do all those things so that we can be transparent. And it is every person that we stop, we have to document why we stopped them, did we search them, was that search consensual, what was our probable cause for stop, everything like that. So we're monitoring that very close. It's because of the statutory requirement. And I want to say again, these things are not occurring everywhere in the United States, but Texas is so far ahead of these things because I hate to quote a commercial, but we know a thing or two because we've seen a thing or two. And so we have taken great strides to do that. And so I hope that answers your question.
Thank you, Chief. That was very well said, and those numbers, those figures, really blew my mind. I had no idea, and I'm sure the ones that are watching, they're probably scratching their heads as well, like, wow, y'all doing some good stuff for the Texas Police Department. We definitely commend you guys, and it's not so much because one of my questions last week, and yeah, I'm not getting the person that you but who really prays and attends to the police officers, what is going on through their heads due to what happened in Minneapolis, because the situation happened for all the good cops who took their oaths very seriously. What about them? What about those that, are having second guesses? Is this what I'm supposed to do? Do I really want to be a police officer anymore? Or am I having a mental breakdown? Just random thoughts could be going on through their head, and then also, I wish I was there. Maybe I could, maybe I could have pushed officer off and shook him out. Maybe he was just in a trance. So we want to make sure that the police officers know that the community is standing behind them and make sure that we're concerned about your well-being as well as the civilians. So again, we commend you all for doing a great job that you do, especially here in Texas County. Man, I mean, growing up in the hood in Beverly and Griffith King and all those places, I've never had a run-in with the police to the point to where I felt that it was a racial incident. Yeah, well, I wrong. Yeah, I was wrong at the time, and I'm not going to tell you what I was doing. but it was what it was. Just say it like this, I'm not aware.
Is the statute of limitations run out on that?
I don't know.
Just that's all right.
You're not going to get me.
His grace is sufficient.
His grace is sufficient. Yes, sir. It very well is. All right, we'll move right along. We're on number 7.
Said,
All right.
with everything that you say, and you mentioned that there is no delete button, there is no way to eradicate and discard images. And when not only yourself, but then other police officers are traversing and negotiating between the spiritual and the secular, it's very easy for your mind, um, and any type of philosophy or belief that you have to be infringed upon. And we know that the Bible says, be not conformed to the ways of this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. But then it also says in Proverbs to trust in the Lord, to lean not
You don't understand.
into your own understanding, even though part of your training, part of the regimen, part of um, the consultations affects your level of understanding. But it says, lean not into those things that you've been trained, your level of comprehension, but to acknowledge God, He will direct your path. So I will ask this question: what role does faith play? And I don't know to what degree, if at any, that faith is alluded to in a lot of the reports that you see, whether it be the internet or on TV. I know there are signs, where people do acknowledge God, they acknowledge Christ. There was a lady, I don't know if she's watching, if she is, I want to commend her. You may have seen the sign last Thursday downtown in the prayer video, where it actually says that Jesus loves you. And so, what role does faith play in your daily life?
In my daily walk, it's everything. I never have a moment that I feel like I'm disconnected from God. While as the chief of police, I don't wear a body camera because I don't get involved in those things in my administration. And being administrative, I guide, I lead, I fund, I try to work through budgetary issues. I try to oversee that which is operational, but I am not operational. And the reason for that is I have people that are trained, that have gone to specialized training, SWAT commanders and people like that. And so when I step on the scene, if I am on the then I am immediately in charge. And I have people that are more well trained than I am. So that was the toughest thing for me, being um, named the chief of police, and even when I was the assistant chief, is not being able to do it, but to direct it, because I've always been. For 23 years, I was in our criminal investigation division, either working it or supervising the homicides and the things like that. And so I'm used to being called out at all hours of the night and things like that. And to all of a sudden, kind of be I don't know, an advisor in certain roles, but not being able to actually go out and do it. And the toughest thing for me was to realize that just because it's not exactly the way that I would do it, doesn't mean it's wrong. You know what I mean? I had to take a step back and say, now there are times when I may say, hey, that's great, man. I'm glad that happened that way and this happened, but next time, you may consider this or that. But I never go and say, no, you're doing that all wrong. You need to do this. I pretty much know that those men and women that work for our police department are highly trained individuals that are very competent. I treat them like adults. I treat them like professionals. I treat them like the competent law enforcement staff that they are. And I think they appreciate that, albeit while monitoring things and making sure that our core values are being adhered to and things like that. But as far as faith goes, everything that I do is with a connection. While I don't wear a body camera, I've got somebody else that's watching me that I answer to, that I represent, that I am an ambassador for. And that is greater than any body camera that I could ever have. Because one day I'm going to stand before that person. I'm not going to stand before the governor of Texas. I'm not going to stand before a city manager. I'm not going to stand before community leaders in Texas County. I'm going to stand before Almighty God, and I have to give an account for what I've done. And that's on a grander scale than the little body cameras. I used to be the polygraph examiner for the police department. For many years, I administered polygraph exams. And even on our pre-appointment test, You know, when somebody was coming to be a police officer, it was my responsibility, not only for our department, but all the agencies around here, Texarkana, Arkansas, and all the others. I administered polygraph tests. And I use that as a ministry opportunity, and I'll tell you why. When those people sit in that chair, the nervousness that they feel, and everything that they feel, and I took it an opportunity to tell them, hey, look, just tell the truth, whatever it is, and we'll work through it. If it's good for you, it's good for you. If it's bad for you, it's bad for you. But there's no sense to fear this. But I said, you know how you feel right now? Oh, imagine how you're going to feel right now. Because there's a reckoning coming. We all have to do that. And so I understand. I understand what it's like to sit in the hot seat. And I want to, I want to, they say that not only what you do, I'm going to get off the police road for just a second because we are in a house of faith and I am a pastor, but I want to tell you that one of the greatest transitions in my ministry was when I stopped trying to do good things for God. As a worship pastor, I would select worship and things, and I would be saying, this would be great. I know how the congregation sings this, and we do this, and we do that, we do this. And in my quiet time, you know, I understood and I heard that the things that I do for God, albeit good, doesn't count. My rewarded service will be those things that I allow God to do through me. And so it's that approach that I apply everything in my life. And I know some people don't want to hear that. There are people that are not men and women of faith that look at this, and of course, I don't want to get into all the separation of church and state. But if you read that and how it was, that was intended to keep the state out of the church, not the church out of the state. You know what I mean? But I'm unapologetic, a man of faith, and it's just a daily walk. And it doesn't mean that I go around hitting people on the head with the Bible. And I am fallible. I will tell you, there are times that I have to repent daily, where I say something or I laugh at something or there's something going on that I say, oh man, I kind of walk worthy of my calling here, and I have to repent. But by and large, uh, the core values and things that we use in our police department are all based off of, by this shall they know that you are my disciples, that you have love for one another. And so, in answer to your question, I hope I've answered that. While I don't preach at work, I hope that the way I carry myself, the way our command staff carries itself, and the way that we represent our department in the community, albeit everyone I'm sure is not, a believer, but I can take a large majority of our department are men and women of faith that are committed to a relationship with all our department. So that does help me as an administrator as we put these core values in front of our department.
All right, and I have the last question, and if there's any other questions that need to be answered subsequent to this question, then Bishop Howard can facilitate that narrative. But what can we do as a body of believers, faith leaders, public servants, like Board Director Stephen Hollowbush and others? What would you ask of us? Because I believe in this powerful message on Bishop Thomas's shirt that we are stronger together, and that a house divided against itself cannot stand. So, from an individual that has served in the ministry as a devout guy, as a staunch believer, as an individual that pastors a church that's thriving, and then also as an individual that has served valiantly and courageously in the city of Ttpd, Texas for over 3 decades. What would you ask of us to do for you in times such as these?
Well, I think you know the obvious answer. We talked about it on Thursday night or Wednesday night when we had the prayer vision, and that is that the effectual, fervent prayers of a righteous man availeth much. And all of you represent a ministry here. We have several pastors throughout our community that were there that night that have committed to pray. And let me tell you that is my request, first and foremost. We have to first put the main thing in main thing. And then after that, God will help us to reach the things that we want to reach in this unity effort and message, and we can go forward from there. So that's the very first thing. The next thing is stand with us. You know, while the country's telling people to choose sides, let's choose God and not be afraid to represent unity and not be afraid to say we don't have these problems here for fear of the extremists on both sides of the issue attacking us and things like that. You know, Jesus said in this have tribulation, but take heart, I have overcome the world. And so, you know, if we can't have peace without the Prince of Peace, and the only way we can do that is through prayer and through inviting him in. So what you can do for us is to pray for the men and women in my department every day. I don't know if I can ever vocalize or verbalize the pressure, the intense scrutiny, and the abandon that they're feeling right now. Unnecessarily so. I tell you, they don't deserve it. Not my department, not my men and women. They do their job admirably every day with dignity and respect. They know who their neighbor is, as the Good Samaritan says. They treat everyone. They don't walk past someone who's hurting, regardless of what their skin color is or where they live or what neighborhood they're in. They assist everyone, and they do so out of compassion for wanting to make this a better community. So prayer, brother, and just standing unified with us, even when it's unpopular, um, that would go a great way. And please lift up the men and women of my department every day and pray that they won't be put in a situation during this current climate and tension where they have to take an action, albeit for the right reasons, that will be used as fodder for division and evil.
Well, Chief, I thank you for joining us tonight. Every all the wisdom and knowledge, um, which you have brought to the table around the table as well, and also for our viewers that's watching. Uh, we pray again that something that was said tonight that will definitely make you think twice versus what you see on television and media. Has a great way of putting a spin on things. We're not saying that every officer is good, and we're not saying that every officer is bad. But at the end of the day, it starts at the head and works down to the tail, and that's just the mind part. And I believe that this man of God, being a man of faith, and I can definitely, the Bible teaches us that spirit recognizes spirit. And I can definitely recognize your spirit as being a real man of faith. And it is in trusting God and believing in Him for Him to direct you in the right direction. And therefore, when you get the direction, then you spread it about. So we definitely salute you, sir. Thank you for your services and all that you do for this community. I know you can't speak for the Arkansas, but you tell Chief on the Arkansas side that I holler at him. So he can vouch for his own city. But I know that we work very closely together. I know I've worked with Ttpd, being a security officer, as well as Ttpd, being in apartment complexes from Smith Key to Sunset apartment complexes. So,
And I believe we're the same. I just, you know, I can't speak for that department, but I do believe that. I believe so also.
I definitely believe so too. Is there any questions at this time? Open table at this moment. I haven't got any phone calls from the number. Have y'all received any inboxes from the GOD, from the media staff? Have y'all received anything? Yeah, no question.
I have one too.
You got one?
Yeah, if I could.
Okay, not a problem.
I'm just curious, is there a ratio of black to white officers within TTPD? Is there that kind of information for us to know what is the ratio of black and white officers?
Absolutely, and I would like to speak to that. You know, one of the things that was long minute ago, even when Chief Dan Shannon was here, is our department should mirror the demographics of our city. And we have right at 100 officers at the Texarkana, Texas Police Department. And so it's pretty easy to determine those ratios. If our community is 38 to 40 2% African American, then we need 38 to 42 African American officers at our police department. If we're to 14% Hispanic, then we need 13 to 14 Hispanic officers in our police department. But let me take an issue with that. You know, I made a statement. I spoke at a Black Lives Matter conference at the Iron Mountain Center. It's been in 2016, I believe, or 2017. And at the end of the day, they allowed me 15 minutes to give the law enforcement perspective. After I had sat there all day, you know, and was listening to things. And but one of the things that I mentioned there, and I believe it, is, you know, the best way to affect change that you feel is needed is to infiltrate and be a part of that organization. And so one of the statements I made there, and I believe this, is if we are ever going to really affect great change with law enforcement and the African American community, the very best way and most effective way to do that is to take, train, and teach young black lives and train them to be professional blue lives and allow them to be a part of our organization. We have some excellent men and women in our police department that, you know, and that was one of the things I thought too in my spirit is, does this community actually think that the African American men and women that serve in my department would serve in an organization that would be so racially biased? And I don't think so. But then God convicted me of that, and they said, would I lead an organization like that? And do people really believe that know me and know the men and women, and especially the African American men and women that I have served in my city, that they would be a part of something like that? I would hope not, you know. But the problem that we have is as we recruit and people come to take the civil service test, they are ridiculed, the names you were called, everything you can imagine to get them not, you're going to be a part of, no, don't do that, you know? I mean, you'd be surprised at what we hear. When we're out investigating crimes and we're talking to witnesses, you hear people from across the street. Don't tell them nothing. It's their job to solve the crimes. Don't be no snitch. You know, I mean, really, I don't, you know. So I think you're absolutely right. We encourage. As a matter of fact, at one of the meetings I was at, one of the pastors, I believe it was Pastor Ware, one of them wanted to know if we would accompany him to Grambling State University to a job fair, and I said, absolutely. You know, I mean, we like I said, we have people on our selection boards and they see the effort that we're putting in to try and recruit and hire. But you know what? It's tough. It's tough for that man or woman of color to say, I want to be a part of that, especially in today's climate. I get it. I get it. But I want to tell you this, with love in my heart, young man, if you wanted to join the police force, I would welcome you with open arms and be very glad to have you. Another thing that I want everybody to know is an untapped profession in our community that could very well be filled by any demographic in the community that doesn't require any special training up front, any special college hours or things like that, is our communications and dispatch center. We always have a shortage of dispatchers and things like that. That is a profession, that is a licensed profession. It has benefits, retirement, all the things that we get as police officers. And if you're not really have the heart or the unction to go out and carry a weapon and put yourself on the front lines, that is the way you can serve. That is the way our young men and women, straight out of high school, you only have to be 18 years old. You have to have a skill with typing and things like that, but that can be taught. But what a great way to earn a great living, invest in the retirement system in the city, have insurance and benefits. There's just so many opportunities that are available, and we would welcome that. Well, I mentioned this earlier, and I think one of the things is you remember when I said the greatest strength that you can have is to be in control of yourself. And before you can control any situation, you have to be in control of yourself. Those issues ebb and flow. All right. You have, like you said, you like to lost your job. All right. Those situations come up, but you also remember when I said we have two officers going to cause that a volatile situation and a supervisor. It's our responsibility, young man, when we see that happen, to step between that, not to ridicule or criticize because we are all human, but to say, hey, I got this, why don't you go take a statement for that person and to intervene in a way that is a smooth transition. You know what I mean? Not to create issues, not to say that we don't understand why you're feeling the way you feel, but from time to time, there are some of those that can be pushed. And we have, I call it showtime. I instruct a de-escalation class, effective communication, and verbal judo. And what we have is what we call a trigger. We say name it and claim it. Everybody has a weakness. And your trigger may be, oh, I know you didn't. When that goes to that in your mind, then you either have to change what you're fixing to do or step aside and let somebody else have it. Because that is a trigger. We all have things that when we reach our limit, we will say to ourselves. And so I think that's the main thing, young man, is that officers have to maintain that control in terrible, hard situations. But if other officers there see that that's not happening, then they have a responsibility. Even though they may not be a supervisor, they may be a trainer, somebody that's being trained, but they have a responsibility to recognize that for what it is and keep their brother law enforcement officer from stepping into a mess that would cause them to be in a bad light or maybe do something that costs them their career or in some cases maybe even their freedom. Uh, what I would like to say to you though, as you move on and to adulthood and do the things that you're going to do, one of the big things that we've talked about in some of the meetings is that, I was told, and you can shed some light on this, I was told that when a police officer stops a young black man or black woman or a person of race, whatever it may be, that person that they're stopping because of what they've seen, what they've heard, conversations that they've had with their own parents about, if you ever stop by a police officer, you better do this, this, and that. That young black man is scared to death. That we don't understand as police officers how frightened that young black adult is. And what I want you to know, our police officers are just as frightened. Okay, we walk with authority because of what we represent, but we have the same fears and the same um, uh, issues that everyone has. And so when we walk up to that car, just know that officer is as frightened as you are, and that until we can establish our safety and our security, we're going to be on guard. We're going to be all business. You know what I'm saying? We're going to be put your hands like a sin or whatever. And the first thing we're met with is, why did you stop being ridiculed and cursing and all that? We never have that established safety. And so just know that there's fear on both sides. And I know we don't represent that enough. Uh, we, we have to understand and recognize that with you guys, you recognizing that in us and us recognizing that in you. And I think we can avoid a lot of issues if we'll just recognize that there's fear in these type of interactions, and until we can establish that safety and that security and that knowledge of knowing, hey, it may not be great, you may not want a citation, but at least we're going to have a dialogue where you get a chance to go to court and to say, whether or not you felt like you were doing whatever it was. So just know uh, we are not that which should be feared. We're there to help. And I made a comment the other day, I don't remember if it was to you or to Derek or Gary, but it hurts me as a minister of God and a person that um, is compassionate with the pastor's heart, to know that and to hear time and time and time again people telling me that they've had to have conversations with their children to fear me. You know what I mean? I've never had conversations with my children to fear you. And I understand the difference there. But let me just tell a story real quick and I'll be brief. I took my daughter to the Fort Worth Zoo one time when she was like 7 years old, so it's been several years ago. And everywhere I go and everywhere my officers go, I know that inside their heart they feel like they are an ambassador of good. That no matter whether they're on duty in Texarkana or whether they're in some other city at a zoo or spending time with their family, they feel like they're an ambassador of good and they feel like they stand for all that is right and to be able to take care of things. While I'm walking through the Fort Worth Zoo, there's a young child, he may have been 3, maybe, just barely walking good. And he's walking through, and that young man, his face is tear soaked, his shirt is wet from him crying, and he is screaming. And it's obvious that he has been separated from his family. I'm an ambassador of good. From this heart and these eyes looking out, my heart reached out to that child. And I walked over and I picked up that child. And about the same time I picked up that child, his dad saw me. And I can't tell you all the things he called me, all the things he said. He thought that I was going to take his child. He thought that I was going to harm his child. And I had to literally pull out my credentials and say, hey, I was helping. You know, I was there. And so a lot of times, that is the things that we battle too, is that we know wherever we are, we feel like we have a responsibility to help. And so we are there to help. And I wish that there was some way that we could eliminate that anxiety and that issue of you must fear me or fear the men and women that work on my department. If you are walking lawfully, you are doing the things, and even if you're not, unless you are going to produce a weapon against us or something like that, you are not to, don't fear what will happen because we are going to take rid of the SWAT situation the other day that everybody saw on Facebook, where we had a man that told up in an apartment that had several felony warrants. There was children in there. There were things like that. We stayed on that scene for 5.5 hours. We took precautions. We took as much time as it needed to get those children and that woman out of the apartment. Then we sent in a robot to be able to try to identify where the man was, so we didn't have to just breach the door and run in, guns out, and cause a problem that we don't want to have to do. We took so much time and restraint in dealing with that issue so that we could do it and do it right. And you know we were criticized for that. You know, why don't they just go in there and get it? Why don't they this? Why don't they that? And so, you know, it's a two-sided thing. We're ridiculed if we do, we're ridiculed if we don't. But I want to reiterate again, we need your prayers. And the miracle of that is that those same officers will get up tomorrow. They'll put on that uniform. They'll shine up that badge. They'll kiss their families goodbye. And they'll go and serve this community without fail each and every day.
Amen. Well, no, you got nothing. You got one more?
Okay, I had a question. So you stated, you stated that, you certain de-escalating situation and calm it down. So is there a protocol that certain officers or that the academy teaches the officers to de-escalate and not allow the situation when the situation comes?
You know, I told you that we are a recognized agency, but one of the things that I want to make sure everybody's aware of, in the state of Texas, police officers are licensed professionals, just like nurses and other people. We're not certified, we're not commissioned, although we are licensed professionals. We are licensed by the Texas Commission on Law Enforcement. And because of that, there are certain things that we have to do to keep our license. Now, they're not licensed through the Texarkana, Texas Police Department. They are licensed as individuals, and it's their responsibility to obtain all the annual training that they have to have in order to keep that license. Were they not to have those hours of training, lose their license and they cannot be police officers anymore. That's one of the things that I want to make sure you're aware of. Part of that is cultural diversity training, de-escalation training, effective communication training, all those things that you can see, racial discrimination, racial profiling, all those different things are statutory requirements. That means it's the law. that we have to go through that each and every year, or at least in a 2 year training cycle. Our license are reevaluated after 2 years, and we have to have certain things. But in addition to the mandatory things, we've got a lot of other things that we have to have, many, many hours of training in order to continue to be licensed as a police officer. Now, the police department monitors that because we don't want an officer to get lazy or not have attended the training that he needs to have, or we have to lose an officer, have to either get him caught up or do things like that. So we monitor everybody's training hours, and we are a training provider. We actually teach cultural diversity in our training center. The Texas County, Texas Police Department has a training center where we train officers all throughout the region. We've had officers from San Antonio, Austin. DPS sends some of their troopers to our de-escalation trainings, our cultural diversity, a lot of those things that are required for them to keep their license. We teach that. We teach all of the correctional staff, the by-state, the LaSalle Bridge, they come to our cultural diversity trainings and things like that. So yes, we do have to make sure that we're doing those things, and that we are staying up to date on that type of training.
Amen. Well, I tell you, great job, great questions, young man. Those are very sound questions that I wasn't anticipating. So I'm glad to hear that he had some great ones, man. I need to put you on the list. Amen. But again, thanks to our viewers today. God bless our audio and visual team back there in the back for doing such an amazing job with allowing us to go broadcast and going live. We thank each one of our viewers as well as our campus host here, Pastor Landon, and his great hospitality and what he does. And my friend, even cracked jokes on me earlier. We don't get him. I got him. You know me. I got him. But we're gonna have a great time. I know he has something to say. He's on the edge of his seat.
I'm on the edge of my seat. Yeah, so we're all in a prayer, and while we have you here, I just want to again reemphasize how appreciative I am, just because we all are servants here. Jesus said that the servants are the ones that are following his footsteps. And so I would just like to even invite our guests that are watching right now to just join with us in praying for you and for our force. Right now, if I would join me in that. And Father, we lift our Texarkana Police Department to you right now. Lord, I pray that every person on this, Lord, that you are using all of the great training, all of the great resources that are there. But Lord, that you are our hope. Lord, I thank you for godly leadership. Lord, your word says that you put leaders in place. And I thank you for putting the chief in place here to lead our city and our great police force. And Lord, we do pray that you keep them from harm, that you keep your hedge around them, on each officer, that you allow them to walk in wisdom. And we all know how great your timing is, that you prepare their timing to be perfect. Lord, we just thank you for your protection, for your covering over them, not only physically, but that you're reaching out and you're sending the support that they need, emotionally, spiritually, and in all areas of life. We ask for your blessings on them. And we pray that even as Jesus grew in favor with both God and man, that this force continues to grow in favor, that their heart be seen, and that they be covered by what is visually seen. Allow their hearts to be seen. Lord, I thank you for that. I thank you for continued wisdom for the chief as he leads, as he administers to this department. In Jesus' name.
All right. Well, that concludes our time. That concludes, I know we probably overtime, but we pray that you stay tuned. I won't say we'll be back next week, but we're going to be meeting again to figure out when we're going to come back again. Next week is Father's Day, and so I don't want to have all these men, great men of God, for their families to miss them on such a great day. Those that are fathers. So we will be reconvening. And again, Chief, thank you so much for your time and your efforts and everything, all the wisdom that you have shared upon us on tonight. we're just so grateful for your time. And also thank you to our visitor Steve and also the one who brought. Again, what's your name again? Giovanni Harrington. Herbie. Oh, okay. Yeah. So we thank God for him as well. And again, bless you all for being here. And for our brothers that are not here, Young Blood and Pastor Hattie, we look forward to seeing you soon, sir. Until next time, y'all have a blessed one.